Session after lunch is always fun. Let's do a little quick quiz. Who remembers fifth grade? Fifth grade, all right. I remember fifth grade because, well, I was a very amazing fifth grader. At that point, I may have been. I'm not sure. I am not smarter than a fifth grader. In fact, well, you decide. I remember a time in fifth grade, as the amazing fifth grader that I am, looked at a test with 100% wrong answers. Happened to be a spelling test, right? It's kind of not cool if you get 100% wrong answers as a fifth grader. Now, I don't know about the rest of you, but I maybe had a little too much confidence as a fifth grader. So I wasn't going to let this stand. Stood up and said loud enough for the entire class to hear it. It's not very creative to spell something one way. My teacher gave me an out. She said, if you can spell principal, I will not send you to go see him. Now, I'm from Minnesota, the land of purple rain. All of you, well, now this isn't going to work. Let's do it this way. Let's do it this way. I had this on my side. All right? All I have to do is spell an unpronounceable glyph. Fine. Call the principal. Tell him I'm coming. The funny thing is, it didn't really get better. In high school, I thought, hey, I can't spell anything. Journalism. That'll be perfect. I can be like these guys. I can sit around, read the paper, try to dial that phone. It'll be amazing, right? So I had all my pencils sharpened. I was all ready to go. Wrote my first story. Remembered the inverted pyramid. Asked why. Did all the things I was supposed to do. I turned in my story, and there's this weird requirement. Typed, double-spaced. Like, what am I for? I don't need to double-space this. They're going to put it into a layout program anyway. It doesn't matter. Well, any of you who know anything about copywriting know that it comes with these things. These are red marks. Now I know why they wanted my paper double-spaced. There was more red on there than there was black. I guess I understand what they mean when they say kill a story, right? Well, I have a confession to make. Hi, I'm Bryce Howitson, and I have a spelling problem. Now, lucky for me, today I'm able to hold down a job. I can communicate with my wife. I may get laughed at a little bit, but it's not too bad. Why is that? Well, pretty much every tool I use today has little red underlines under things. That means that there are tools here to help me to be a better person. I'm here to ask you, what are your red underlines? What are the things in your life that you could use help with? Oddly, there are a lot of things in our lives that give us a lot of help. Lassie may not be one of them unless you're stuck in a well. But let's say that you're too busy to respond to that email. There's, did you mean to say, right? Text messages have emojis. If you're directionally challenged, that's not right, by the way, if you are directionally challenged. We have real-time traffic and directions, maps. We have tools that help us. In fact, it's gotten so good that Grammarly reads my emails and says, this is a little snarky, maybe it shouldn't go to your boss. Maybe it should, I don't know. In fact, as of 2020, it was estimated that 79%, almost 80% of digital things had some form of AI help as part of them. Now, 2020, remember we've had a pandemic, the emergence of generative AI. This number is probably going up, okay? So that always begs the question, where do we go from here? All right. This is, because we're after lunch, this is going to be a slightly interactive session. We have a fill in the blank. Somebody tell me, in 20 years, AI will take my job, okay? What else? Rule the world. Have completely fallen apart. I like Alan's answer. That makes me happy. There was research done in 2021 where a broad swath of population was actually asked those questions. 70% of them, right, are going to infringe it's going to infringe my privacy. We're already kind of seeing that. 90%, it's going to take my job, or most jobs. My favorite one on this thing is that 18%, which is a mass extinction event. Terminator might be real. I don't know. But this right here is the reality we live in right now. Okay? What is that? That's fear. Okay? We are all living in a world where we're kind of scared of what will happen with AI. I think there's a good reason for that. Most of you have seen some sort of science fiction somewhere of a very good, benevolent robot sort of being less good and benevolent, right? Most often, robots in science fiction portray something kind of bad. There are many fewer examples of good AI. Right? So we've got this as a context. Let's add to that the fact that as of right now, AI is getting a little scary. Right? Anybody see these? The story is that the person that created these used Midjourney and generative AI like ChatGPT to create both the visuals and the script for this. Okay, or how about South Park? Right, entire episodes being written with ChatGPT. All of us look at that and think, wow, I'm a person. That's great. I get sick. I need to sleep. I get whiny and demanding when I'm hungry. Right? At least we had lunch before I'm here. These are all things that don't happen to robots. Right? AI doesn't suffer from sleepiness. And so what that means is that jobs are going to go away. 100% true. This has happened over and over and over throughout history. Mid-1400s, there's this guy in Germany named Gutenberg. He made a lot of monks who spent their days copying very laboriously single pages of a book kind of mad, right? Suddenly, they're not needed anymore. How about this one? I'm guessing most of you try to call somebody and you have to wait for the switchboard to connect you. Or maybe you got into an elevator today somewhere and you had to ask the nice person to press the button. As recently as 1950s, now this is a number for the United States, I'm not sure exactly how it meshes here, but there were 950,000 elevator operators in the United States in 1950. Okay? Let's go a little closer to today. I think AI is going to solve the last mile problem. It's going to happen real quick. Uber drivers, pizza delivery, Amazon, there's going to be some issues here, right? Because we're finding ways to replicate those. As a side note, does anybody else find it hilarious that the objects to move people and the objects to move other things look the exact same? They're just different sized. So the issue that we then have is I look at this as a human and I say, well, what value do I provide to society? Right? For a long time, we grouped together. We did things as groups so that the whole society could survive. But now I'm looking at this and I think, well, if I had to be part of a barter economy, right, today as a product designer, as an engineer, as a marketer, as a fill in the blank, right, what would I barter? And all of these things kind of scare me. They wrap with the fact that AI is capable, and I look at this and I think, wow, I thought my job was more than a paycheck. Maybe it isn't. If we stopped here, it'd be pretty scary, but we don't have to. Here's the cool thing about all of the changes that happened throughout history. The monks got to spend time figuring out peak beer. I'm good with that. How about the elevator operators? The vast majority of them retrained into jobs in hospitality. These are places where they could use their skills at things like knowing the area, being personable, giving advice, all these kinds of things. They just moved to a different job position for those things. Okay? So all of this, the entire point of this discussion so far, is that we need to think about how we start building AI tools so that they are guardrails for people and not replacing the person in the process. Or if they do replace the person in the process, how do they benefit the whole? We look at it as a versus, right? Let's look at some of the things that computers are good at. They don't get emotional. We just talked about this. They don't get tired. They don't call in sick. They don't experience boredom. That's kind of a big, important one, right? How many of you have had to do something for a class, for a job, whatever, in the last week that was very repetitive and you thought, wow, there should be a better way to do this? I'm guessing almost everybody, if you're honest, has done that. People, on the other hand, are really good at creating actually innovative solutions to things. Those innovative solutions tie into our ability to empathize with our fellow human. Generative AI right now cannot empathize. It can just regurgitate. Okay? That's a big deal. We also get the ability to look at things very easily. We're very good at identifying why something is different. Right? We have implicit context that most machines do not have when they talk about this kind of thing. Instead, I propose that we start thinking this way. Right? I want man and machine. And what does that mean? What if we built tools that keep us safe? Right? The car that takes over steering when you're going to drive off the side of the cliff. Not that far away. Once Tesla figures out if they're allowed to do that or not, it'll happen, right? How about making us more accurate? Spelling, for me, is an accuracy thing. Luckily, you didn't see any of the typos that I fixed right before I started talking about this, because there was things to make me more accurate. I think improving job satisfaction is something a machine can do for us. Instead of removing our jobs, it can make us happier at them. Right? If you don't have to do those horrible things, those time-consuming things, and you can focus on being a good human, you're going to like that more. And finally, I think that they can actually increase our reputations. How would all of you feel if this entire presentation was full of typos and grammatical errors? You would think of me differently. We have the tools now to actually help people be thought of better. There we go. This is a fun number. I work in health tech in the United States, so this is sort of top of mind for me. But it's predicted that the shortage of nurses in healthcare by 2030 worldwide will be 13 million. It's 13 million empty jobs. The problem with this is that today, well, we've had a giant pandemic that made nursing a kind of a horrible field. But in addition to that, a huge chunk of most nurses' jobs. In fact, there are some nurses who their entire job is 100% administrative. And the reason for that is because their background makes them uniquely positioned to be able to do the administrative tasks that they probably shouldn't be doing. But that means they're not doing care. So they're adding into this, there's 13 million plus however many nursing positions are not doing nursing. Okay? Here's another fun one. Tradespeople. So cabinet makers, welders, electricians, take your pick. They probably don't have to worry that somebody's going to come that a robot's going to come hang cabinets in my house anytime soon. Maybe we'll get there, maybe not. But they're not super worried about it. What they are worried about is that literally 1/3 of their week is spent doing administrative tasks like billing or getting permits. All things that, again, we could find ways to allow the AI to do that for us. This one's near and dear to me. I spend a lot of my time calling myself a product manager. Do you know that it takes roughly 6 to 7 weeks to do the correct market research for a new product? If your product is top of mind, so I know people very well who worked with Target when they started doing their pandemic curbside delivery. They were the first ones to do it. If they'd waited 6 to 7 weeks to figure it out, they wouldn't have been the first ones to do it. They'd have had probably an inferior solution. And a lot of things would have fallen apart. Make sense so far? So that's a lot of kind of scary numbers, I admit. So let's look at what's happening today that addresses some of these things, and let's kind of see some examples of where we could go. I said I work in healthcare tech. One of the biggest drivers of patient outcomes, now we say patient outcomes when we mean the patient gets better, that's typically the, the thing we're saying, is when there's open communication between a care team. You talk to your coworkers and you get a better result. That's weird. Okay, well, why is that such a problem in healthcare? A couple years ago, I had the privilege of working with Stanford Health. They're right down the street from Google's campus in California. They have 2,500 care providers, so doctors, nurses, support staff, whatever else. It's a lot of people. Of those, approximately 200 of them are named Dr. Lee. Now, if I need to talk to Dr. Lee about something, how do I do that? I mean, with 200 of them, I probably have never seen their picture. I may not know. What else could I do? Well, AI can look at things like billing information and see that one of these Dr. Lees has billed with this patient. They can see that, I don't know, one Dr. Lee is out on the golf course based on their schedule. It's probably not the one I want to talk to right now. So we can use tools like AI to narrow this down to say Dr. Lee number 6 number 5 looks like the one you probably want to talk to. I have no idea how, as a human, I would have done that. Like, to me, that seems outrageous. Again, in healthcare, this is a fun, for those of you taking advantage of the Canadian healthcare system, this is a fun number. If you need a knee replacement in the United States, it costs you about $50,000. Except it doesn't cost you $50,000, it costs your insurance company $50,000. Because the insurance company is designed to make money for their shareholders, guess what? They don't want to pay $50,000. So they make you ask for permission to do the surgery, to bill for this event, okay? And they say things like, has the person that's getting a knee replacement experienced problems in their work, right? Like they're a UPS driver and they can't walk. Are they over 65 years old? Have you tried things like cortisone injections? If you say no to any of these, you can guess what's going to happen, right? The insurance company's going to come back and be like, sorry. I mean, I know they said they need a new knee and you agree, but what else can we do, right? This is some of those admin tasks that the nurses get stuck with. Nurses get stuck with proving this stuff. AI can look at a health record and say things like, well, these are the things that were tried. Like I can document age, I can document cortisone injections, I can document all of these things, and I can even say, you know what? I can't find an MRI or a CT that shows the damage in the knee. Maybe you should include that. Maybe you should schedule that now so that the next step works better. Right? We can take all of that off of a human. How about a personal favorite? I'm sure all of you have thought about looking for a job at some point. I get called by recruiters all the time. I know some very good ones. And I know some who, for whatever reason, have tried to recruit me to things like the head of a nursing program at a hospital. Now, I don't really know where that came from, honestly. I mean, I've worked for some health tech companies, but that does not in any way, shape, or form qualify me to be a nurse, let alone to be in charge of other nurses, right? Like this isn't the way this works. What if we looked at something like generative AI and said, ChatGPT, summarize Bryce? This is straight from my LinkedIn. Notice that bottom one? Seems like kind of an important piece for recruiting for nursing. This stuff is available right now. How about one that applies to all of us as technologists and engineers? How much time do you spend trying to get data for things, especially fake data? Right? I will give you an example. We do integrations all the time with my job. But to do the integration, we're told that we have to show that we can do the integration. Go figure. Fine. Give me some data, and I'll show you that. Well, I'm sorry, our data is special. It's private. You can't have it. Okay, so how would I show you an integration? I'm stuck, right? But I don't have to be. As a designer, addresses, names and addresses, visual designer, names and addresses were one of the things I always struggled with, right? Because they're so different. Right now, we can ask a generative AI tool to give us 200 addresses, 300 addresses. Make sure some of them are long. Make sure some of them have suite numbers. Make sure some of them are in Canada. Make sure some are in the United States. I actually did feed this to both Bard and ChatGPT. I like that first one, 2600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Bard is not making these up, by the way. We also have some right here. We have a couple in California that look pretty realistic. I do think it's funny that we divulged into tree names at a certain point. Bard was kind of like, I got 5 or 6 of these that are real, and now we've got trees. Okay. Also note that I asked it to be produced as JSON. So I didn't even have to format that. Now, granted, the ChatGPT version is slightly better at formatting. That's what I got out of ChatGPT. That is something that I could take directly into code and do something with. However, ChatGPT, there was a big disclaimer when I put that prompt in. There was a big disclaimer that said it's not allowed to give me real addresses. But would I like to generate fake ones? It's like, well, yeah, I thought I asked for that, but let's do that anyway. Go ahead. And it gave me this back. These are not as creative by any means as some of the stuff that came back from Bard, but it also doesn't really meet my conditions of length and some things like that. So the main takeaway here is Not hard to do, but do pay attention to the output of the tools that you're using. But let's imagine that we applied this to something else. You need to make a shopping cart system, and you need to know it works with things like discounts, coupon codes. Okay, ChatGPT, generate 200 fake products for me with coupon codes. Suddenly you have something to work with. Maybe you're working in some sort of utility type environment. Generate billing history for me with different addresses and moves and things like that. These are all things that are kind of hard to get. Healthcare, again, back to the one that I know very well. Training and doing any of this AI work requires data. The biggest problem with health data, none of you want me to know what you suffer from, right? Generative AI tools can build entire medical records that are real enough to show decision-making process. Right? Those things are hard to get today. There are people that spend probably most of their day trying to generate fake stuff like that. ChatGPT, Bard, whatever can do that quickly. So all of that, the real goal is I want all of us to think about what are our red underlines. What are the things that we interact with every day that we do poorly? And I want you to start thinking about what you can build around those things. But don't just think what you can build around those. We've all got to do some other things too. For example, can you help people to be less scared of the product you make? Right? What does that take to show somebody that you're not out for their job? Can we not give people reason to write legislation? I submit to you that almost all legislation is written out from a place of fear. How do we help write legislation from a place of opportunity? Second, what can we do to make people better, right? And in this case, I typically say to focus on the tools. Tools on their own are empowering. They're typically not replacing, right? Give a carpenter a hammer, they do something with it. That's surprisingly cut off on that side, sorry. So yeah, this is my challenge to you, to go make better AI. And that's me in case anybody wants to connect or tell me I'm wrong, preferably the tell me I'm wrong part, because that creates good dialogue.